what has been the journey and continues to be the journey as I navigate this field of entrepreneurship is this thought of I'm constantly writing my own permission slip.
Yeah. Ooh,
Constantly giving myself permission to pitch a government contract, giving myself permission to go on a stage that I'm like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Giving myself permission to work with brands like LinkedIn, to be on the Today Show, giving myself permission. And it's because I've constantly written my own permission slip.
Yeah. Hi there, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Classy Podcast. I am your host, Mary Sturgill. This podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. And I want to start today's episode by saying one thing, and that is welcome to work, Roshanda Pratt.
Mary, listen. Oh, that brings back such fond memories. Welcome to work. Oh, gosh, I love it.
Yes. So I need to let the rest of you in on a little inside joke. Roshanda and I used to work at WLTX in Columbia, South Carolina. And every day when I would come into work, Roshanda was the morning executive producer, and she would greet me with that greeting without fail, every single day when I came into work. And it helped me start my day off on the best foot. So I thank you so much for that, Ro.
You're so welcome. I mean, it is so beautiful. You know, we work in television news, and I tell people all the time, the thing about working in TV is you see the best and the worst of humanity in 24 hours.
Oh, for sure.
And what the things that we cover, just to have someone to have the bright spike to say, not just good morning, but welcome to work. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yes.
Really just makes a difference. So, I love it. This is going to be a great discussion today.
Yeah, I'm so happy we were able to do this. I've been wanting to have Ro on the show for a long time because I see what she's doing in the innovative and entrepreneurial space, and it is extremely just inspirational, and you can just tell from her energy. I know if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can tell from her energy what an impact she's making out here in the digital streets, as Ro calls them.
Thanks, friend. I'm trying to make my corner of the internet nice.
Right, exactly. So let's start for people who may not know who you are. Give us a little bit of your background and that led you to where you are.
Yeah. So my journalism career started in the 4th grade. I know you all are thinking they didn't hire people that young, did they? Well, my dad did.
Right.
So in the 4th grade, my mom and dad are from the beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago. And as the Yankee of the family, my dad told me it was my duty and responsibility as an American citizen to know what's going on in my country and my community. So while my friends were watching the Smurfs, I was watching the news. I grew up with Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, Walter Cronkite. I am totally dating myself during this conversation already.
Oh,
but
me too.
I grew up learning about television news about the world around me. And it wasn't until I got into high school that a friend of mine introduced me to broadcast journalism. He said, hey, you like to talk a lot, and we're starting our own media channel here on campus. I would love for you to be a part of it. Now, let me just give further background of this. Mary, when I was growing up, most of the people who were on the main anchor desk were men.
Yeah.
And there weren't really minorities,
right,
women or women of color. And it wasn't until I saw Connie Chung, Barbara Walters, and then Oprah Winfrey that I even know that this was possible to pursue as a career. And this is why representation matters.
Yeah.
And when my friend introduced me to that, that's when I decided, oh, I want to become a broadcast journalist. And I had this big lofty goal that I wanted to become the next Oprah. So I was going to take over Oprah's job when she retires. And of course, there was a different path. So I worked in TV for 20 years. And most recently, when I say most recently, within the last 5 years, I decided to bet on myself. left television news, and decided to really pursue a path in the digital marketing space. I was really an early adopter of using live stream
Hmm.
and wrote a book about it and teaching people how to share their thought leadership and what they know through video. And the rest is history.
Yeah, I want to tell you, I might have told you this. I'm not even sure if I have or not told you this, but your first book, The CEO of Live Video,
Yes.
I read the book, and when I was applying for this job here at Furman,
Mm-hmm.
I used that book in my teaching lesson about how to, because I'm a, a teacher of storytelling, a storytelling teacher, right? And I used that book in my practice or my exhibition teaching session.
No, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I did. I did. I used your book. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I
So
appreciate it.
I want to talk a little bit about the feelings that went into making that decision to drop the stability, and I use that term,
Yes.
kind of facetiously, of news,
Mm-hmm.
to going out on your own.
Oh, gosh. It was one of those things that, so in 2015, Periscope came on the scene.
Yes.
I will never forget this, Mary.
Yeah.
Never forget. We just wrapped up the morning show, two and a
Right.
half hours at WLTX. And I was standing there in the newsroom, and Nora and Gail were anchoring the CBS morning show, the
Hmm.
national show. And they came on and they were talking about this cool app called Periscope. And they
Yeah.
actually interviewed the guys who gave us the capability of live streaming on the phone. And Mary, I was sitting there in awe of this technology because you and I know what it takes to do a live shot.
Oh,
It's a
absolutely.
truck, there's wires, there's bells and whistles. And these guys have figured out how to do this with a smartphone. And I was in awe.
Yeah.
But everybody else around me was like, this is dumb. This is a fad. This is more ways for people to be irresponsible on social media. They were probably cranky because they didn't have their coffee yet for the morning.
Probably.
But it was just like all just bad idea, bad idea.
Yeah.
But I saw something different. I saw this is the window to the world. And I heard this really still small voice that told me this was the way.
Yeah.
And so I totally leaned in and started just doing live video. I mean, I just taught people what I knew, which
Right.
is TV. This is how you pitch a story. This is how you tell stories. And even in the face of doing that, when my coworkers were talking about me, so I'm like, what is Ro doing? What is this Ro Show Live thing? And I
Right.
just started doing it and doing it. And then we wrote the
Yeah.
book and teaching people how to do what I learned through live streaming, and also bringing in some of those things that I learned working in television news. And then what opened up for me, Mary, you remember this because I mean, you saw it. You were there at the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
People started asking me, well, are you a speaker? And I was like, I guess. I mean, I
Right.
talk on social media. Yeah, I'm a speaker. What you need? Well, can you come in and teach at this event? And can you train here? And can you train this? And
Yeah.
so I was like speaking on the weekend and producer during the week.
Hmm.
And then it just opened up this bigger door of, wait a second, Roshanda, we're on to something. And so we were driving to Florida. I had no more vacation time. So I
Right.
literally was doing stuff on the weekend. And my husband, Jacoby, just turned to me and said, I think you need to bet on yourself. And I said, what do you mean?
Yeah.
He says, you're on to something here. This
Yeah.
is a thing. And I said, well, what is a thing? I still was oblivious.
Right.
I mean, I knew I was doing it, but he was like, Roshanda, we are driving and you are flying out every weekend to events.
Right.
There's something here. And I think you need to go bet on yourself. And I think you need to leave. And of course, I was already feeling something. I
Yeah.
had a dream, and I had someone kind of give me some insight about that dream that walked me through this journey and process. And I was like, you're right. I do need to leave. And I'm going to share, there was one other aha moment, and Mary,
Yeah.
you'll appreciate this. I won't name any people, but you
Okay.
probably could take a guess. And I think this was kind of like solidified, you need to go. I remember there was a big, at this point in time, I left the morning show because I had a baby,
Hmm.
and I was working as a multi platform producer. And so I was dayside. I was working a regular, normal hour shift, whatever that
Right.
means in news. And there was a big story popping off on social media. And I went into the office. I told the news director at the time that this is a big story on social. I explained it to her. She's like, yeah, that is. And I said, I would like to front this story. which means I'd like to write it, put it together for the evening show. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, she didn't want me on air.
Yeah.
Totally could have done it, but for whatever reason, she didn't want that. And she says, no, I think you need to write it and have so-and-so track it. And I remember walking over to this person's desk and for 20 minutes trying to convince them, Mary Sturgill, why this was an important story.
Wow. Yeah.
That day, I remember walking from their desk, walking over to my desk, and I sat down and I said, never again will I have to convince people about stories that are important.
Yeah.
And I think I started writing my resignation letter then.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I know the players, the players in that, and I also know that story well, having been a reporter and having to pitch stories all of the time
Yes.
and having to get them approved before I did them. There were numerous stories that I did kind of in the background without approval yet
Yes.
because I felt so strongly about them. And I finally, I mean, literally the firefighter cancer story that I did took me over a year to convince people that this was an important story, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I went ahead and went and talked to the expert because she was only in town for a conference, right? Talked to the expert, got her on camera, had all of that stuff, had my people lined up and everything, and started doing the research and the data that I would need, right, for
Yes.
the story. So I think when you believe in something so strongly, you know, that can be a very, very strong catalyst.
Correct. And it was
Yeah.
just one of those things on top of my husband saying, bet on yourself, on top of the social proof I was seeing.
Right.
And then this incident in the newsroom, I said, it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
It's time for me to go.
And so many more people are benefiting from this. I'll share with you a quote that a friend of mine said, because, you know, when I left news, I had a struggle with that too. Like, do I leave
Yes.
or do I, you know, what do I do? And a friend of mine said to me, and she said, Mary, and this was the best piece of advice, right? Mary, you are an educator at heart, and I believe you are too, Ro.
Yes.
You are an educator at heart, and you are teaching people about the stories of the day that they need to know, whether they want to know or not, but that they need to know. But you can do that in so many other ways and even potentially reach a broader audience.
Yeah. I remember after that dream that I had, I literally wept for this job because remember, I was introduced to this profession in the fourth grade. And
Right.
so there was a love for it, a
Yeah.
love for informing my community. And I remember I was in the green room at WLTX, which is not green, by the way.
Right.
And telling Sharanda that I was leaving. I was
Yeah.
leaving the industry. And I was just crying. And I'll never forget Sharanda telling me, she said, Roshanda, you're always a journalist. You're
Right.
just going to go do it a different way. And
Right.
I remember just thinking how that just brought so much healing to my heart. And I said, you're right. She's like, you're never going to stop being a journalist. You're never going
Right.
to stop being a producer. You're just going to go do it a different way, friend. And I see what you're doing. And she's like, and you need to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
You know
It's
what?
something beautiful, Mary, and you know this when people see you
Yes.
and they give you permission to also see yourself.
Yeah. And that's exactly what she did for you. She gave you that
Exactly.
permission to do what you knew you needed to do.
Yes,
And I think other entrepreneurs can relate to that because I think many people have kind of maybe not jumped when they really wanted to jump, but waited for that
for
permission from
sure.
someone else.
Yes. And I've learned in this, my husband told me to bet on myself.
Yeah.
But what has been the journey and continues to be the journey as I navigate this field of entrepreneurship is this thought of I'm constantly writing my own permission slip.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Constantly giving myself permission to pitch a government contract, giving myself permission to go on a stage that I'm like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Giving myself permission to work with brands like LinkedIn, to be on the Today Show, giving myself permission. And it's because I've constantly written my own permission slip.
Yeah. I just wrote that down because I think that's so important. And I
Yes.
always put, I've done this since college. I put important quotes on the wall or in college, it was on my loft.
Yes.
But I wrote that down because I think that's so important. And I want our listeners to remember that as well,
Yes.
that sometimes we get in our own way by not giving ourselves that permission.
Correct. Correct. I think about the fact that if I had listened to the naysayers who said this was a fad, this is stupid, I wouldn't have been able to become an international speaker speaking in Paris, France about
Yeah.
women telling their story. I
Right.
wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that we've done, an Amazon best-selling book, all of these things, because people said that it was stupid or made fun of me or laughed at me. And so to the entrepreneur who's listening to this, I wanted you to understand you're the visionary, you're the disruptor, you're the innovator, and be okay with the fact that people don't see your vision.
Yeah.
Because I didn't, I knew that this is where I needed to go.
Yeah.
I didn't see the totality of the vision, but I just knew that they were wrong, Mary Sturgill,
Right.
and I was right.
Right.
And here's the thing: 2020, a pandemic in the world proved that. So
Right.
all those people who are now trying to play catch up and trying to figure out, how do I live stream, Ro? What technology do I have to get? Literally, Mary Sturgill had to go buy my book
Right.
because I didn't have to get ready. I was already ready.
Right. What's that saying? You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
Yeah, if you are already prepared, you don't have to get prepared. And I was
Yeah.
prepared.
Yeah. So tell everyone who might not know how do you help other entrepreneurs?
Sure. So I work with CEOs and founders in helping them to tap into their thought leadership so they can be seen, heard, and paid. A lot of times when we think about a communication strategy, we think about that for a larger company, and that's important. But what we're seeing in the online space, what we're seeing in the world, are people want to connect to people. They want to know you authentically. They want to know your vulnerability, your transparency stories, all of those things. And so, how you do that is having a communications plan for your personal brand, for who you are as a thought leader. That's on one side. And for my entrepreneurs, we actually have a digital school, a school of visibility, where we help them in the digital space through some of our courses and our book, CEO of Live Video.
Yeah. Excellent. So, you have your hand on the pulse of what people need to be doing. What are
Mm-hmm.
you seeing that people are doing that is perhaps hindering them getting their story out?
Oh gosh, that's a big that's a big question. Where do I begin, Mary? I
Right.
think one of the things, and it's so interesting when I hear people say this, I don't have an interesting story.
Right.
Your life is your story.
Exactly.
Your life. And so there's a saying that says, good stories are given to those who can tell them. And I think we all have a good story. You just have to go
Yes.
mine out your story. So when people just discredit their own journey, discredit their story, I'm like, you're totally missing it because your story has value, right?
Right.
The other thing that I see that people are not leaning into or really thinking about is what social media really is these days. I think when social media started, it was about cute dogs and let me show you what I'm eating for lunch and my workout plan. But if you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, a thought leader, social media is not about being social.
Right.
Let's drop the social and let's focus on the media. Each and every one of us in the palm of our hand have the capabilities of having our own media channel.
Right.
Think about that. So when you produce content on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, whatever your preference is, you are creating your own local media affiliate, your own CBS, NBC, PBS, because people come to you as a resource.
Yes.
What does Roshanda have to say about this? What does Roshanda think about this? Roshanda didn't post it, so it can't be real. I mean, I have people tell me that, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
understanding that social media is not about the social piece. It's really about an opportunity for you to manage your own media network, which in turn helps you to manage your narrative.
Yeah, and I think you're so right about this. I do a workshop with female entrepreneurs once in a while. I think I at a entrepreneur conference, I did it like a
Mm-hmm.
pop-up, right?
Yes.
And a friend of mine who is a journalist for Forbes,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a pop-up together, and we just had a conversation with people about their stories, right? Because
Yes.
how do you get yourself noticed? How do you get into the news, or how do you get into your own digital space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she talked to them about the business aspect of it, but I talked to them about the human story aspect of it, right?
Yes.
Everybody
Yes.
has a story, and everybody's story is important. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And we are, for whatever trait or whatever reason, as humans, we all diminish our own stories many
Mm.
often, right?
Yes.
And you're talking about tapping into that.
Tapping into that, because that's what people connect to.
Yeah.
Stories are woven into our DNA.
Right.
It really is. There's story in your DNA. When I think about the importance of story and how it's in your DNA, I'm going to share a story here.
Yeah.
And not a very highlighted part of our history, but nonetheless, it's important to talk about. One of my favorite stories is one that Lester Holt did for NBC News.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the lynching museum in Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
I've actually had a chance to go see it. And this museum talks about the dark side of our history in America.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about, they actually pay homage to those victims of lynching in America by state. One of the things that's so profound, Mary, that I actually witnessed when I went to this museum, and Lester Holt highlighted in his news story, that people volunteer, and through research, they're able to track in our country places where lynchings took place.
Right.
So someone will go and volunteer, go into this community, dig up the soil, and put it in a container and take it back to the lab for researchers. And this is what they found. Here we are years later, and they would find the DNA of the victims in the soil.
Wow.
And then they're able to then trace that person's story.
Yeah.
Very powerful. So
Huge.
I actually went to this museum, and you see all of these soil samples, and you're able to read the person's story. Mary, a family of 4 that was murdered. And you're able to read their story, because why? Their story was still preserved in the soil. And what we understand is our DNA carries a story. This is why when you go to your doctor's appointment and they say, in your family history,
right,
we can see X, Y, and Z. So storytelling is in the fiber of our being.
Yeah.
Yet we want to deny that every single time. And that's where the difference is.
Yeah.
That's how we're able to make a connection. And that's what makes the difference in us understanding that your visibility is power. You deserve to be seen, heard, and paid.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Whew, that whole thing just gave me goosebumps. Because
So
what a wonderful, but horrific, right? But
yes.
But wonderful example at the same time, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Storytelling is a part of us. You cannot listen. We talk about it all the time. Storytelling is when I call my girlfriend and say, oh my gosh, girl, I just went to Target. Right. They have a 50% off. It's storytelling.
Right.
Show and tell in elementary school. What is that? Storytelling.
Yeah.
This is my bear. My dad gave it to me. I love this bear. Storytelling.
Yeah. How do you get people who don't see that? How do you, well, one, I know I'm going to know this answer to this question in part before I even ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. One is your passion, right? But two, how do you get, and your energy, how do you get your clients who don't quite get it, because that requires a certain amount of being willing to open up yourself, right? So how do you help them over that hurdle?
One of the things that clients have repeatedly told me is I have a great knack for introducing people to themselves.
Yeah.
In inviting them into a space to meet the you they have not met yet.
Yeah.
And in one, and I actually require it, that when we're going to work together, I need you to bring down all barriers. I need you to be open. I need you to be flexible, teachable, coachable, all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things is helping people understand the value of them.
Yeah.
Helping people tap into the fact that I live my life. See, when I used to say, welcome to work to you, Mary, I was living my life, and I still do, by this thought and idea that I'm someone's solution. Yes. I don't know what happened to Mary between her leaving her home and coming to the TV station. But what I do know is if I welcome her to work, maybe that would help her start her day a little bit better than how it was when she first came in. And so I live my life as being someone's solution. And so that's one of the things that we teach our clients. You're someone's answer. You're someone's solution. And here's the thing. If you don't show up, if you don't tell the story, the person you're called to serve remains in their pain. I don't know
Ooh,
about you, Mary. That's something I don't want to carry.
no, exactly. Say that again. I want to make sure everybody got it.
That if you don't show up, if you don't tell the story, if you don't speak up, the people that you're called to serve remain in their pain because you're their solution.
Wow. That gave me goosebumps and it almost brought tears to my eyes because I think it's pretty apropos that we're talking today at where I am in my place in the semester and what all is
Yes.
going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But enough about me. Um, I um I harp on this all the time about to my students about curiosity and being the stories.
Yes.
What advice and being able to use your curiosity to find stories, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is your advice to your clients about because I kind of waver on the fence of curiosity is innate in you. You're born with a
Mm-hmm.
certain amount, right? But I
Yes.
also think that it is also a skill that you can hone.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think we have to practice curiosity. I love this
Yeah.
question because one of the things that I tell any new reporter, any TV station I work for, even when I would leave, my advice
Yeah.
is always this: remain curious.
Curious. Yeah.
Ask yourself, well, why is that? Did anybody else notice that? What's going on over there?
Yeah.
That's not being nosy, that's being curious
Yeah.
and asking the right questions and just having this idea and thought of I want to know more. I'm always reading books. Like if you could see my office, like seriously, I'm just gonna bend down here. I want you to see. Look at all these books,
Oh
right?
yeah. It looks
Yeah,
like yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Now
And
now
there's
they're in
even
focus.
there's even more. I
Yeah.
am always curious. I'm always wondering, well, what about this? I wonder if someone wrote a book about this. Is there a podcast about this? Remaining curious actually helps you to tap into your thought leadership,
Yeah.
your storytelling, and it also helps you continue to explore things in within yourself.
Yeah. Let's
So
clarify a
curiosity is
term.
a gift.
Oh yeah, yes. Let's clarify a term. You've used it a couple times now. Just for people who might want some clarification,
Mhm.
what are you referring to when you say thought leadership?
What I'm thinking about when I say thought leadership is your unique genius.
Yeah.
Everyone has a unique genius, that thing that you have unwavering belief and conviction about. And you just are like, I will talk about this until the cows come home because this is something that I totally believe in. And you have a certain thought or a certain insight about it. That's
Yeah.
what I mean when I say thought leadership.
Okay. Yeah. I love that. Let's do a little scenario.
Okay. Uh-oh.
I just finished my memoir, right?
Okay.
And it's taken me almost 7 years because I've stopped and I've started
Mm-hmm.
and I've kind of dove into things and then I'm like, oh, I need some space from this, right?
Yes.
So if you were, say you were taking me on as a client and I'm in my own way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
I've finished it. I'm looking for an editor, that kind of thing, but I want to get it to market as soon as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give me?
I want to ask you about the things that you're talking about and writing about.
Yeah,
Are you healed to speak about those things openly? Because we have
right,
to market this book.
right,
You have to talk
right.
about this book. You're going to be interviewed about this book. So, how are you feeling in here?
Yeah.
You know, the work that I do is very holistic. It's
Hmm.
not just about hit the button and create the content. It's not just about show up and talk. No, because what I understand is the inner work helps the outward performance.
Yeah,
So if I'm comfortable in here, I can show up out here.
right.
So what are the things that you want to talk about from the book? And what
Hmm.
are things that you like? I don't want to talk about that out loud, but they can read it in the book.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about that. Let's explore that, right? Because I don't want you in an interview when someone asks you and you kind of clam up because you're like, oh, I did write about that. Yikes.
I'm like, oh, I
And
forgot that.
I forgot about that, right? So it's asking how comfortable are you truly with putting all of you out here in the world
Yeah,
for people to read that? And then how do we get you to a place where you're comfortable with people seeing you vulnerable, experiencing your transparency, and you being your authentic you.
Yeah.
Those are some of the steps that we walk through.
And I think that's what sets you apart from other people, is that you look at those, you said it yourself, that holistic view of how do we get you from here to here, so that to help you get out of your own way as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. And I think and I use my book as an example, but I think all creative endeavors are entrepreneurial in spirit, right?
I totally believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do a word association game. Okay.
Oh boy. So you want me to say the first word that comes to mind?
Yes.
Jesus.
No filters. No. Okay.
Okay. I'm ready.
This one's gonna be easy. So we'll start off easy. Okay. Visibility.
Power.
All right. Explain that.
There's a certain power that happens when you are visible, when you show up. I can't begin to tell you, Mary, how many times I've gone to events that usually do not have women of color, especially women of color who look like me. Okay. And to have someone grab me and say, "It's so good to see you." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "No, it's good to really see someone who looks like me in this space.
Yeah.
Thank you for being that." So your visibility gives others permission, but it also gives other people the power to shine.
Yeah. I mean, I chose that. I'm very transparent. I chose that because not that you're wearing your t-shirt, but because I know that's one of your mottos, so to speak.
Yes.
Visibility is power. And I wanted to make that connection because we harken back to, and I think we even mentioned this in the very beginning of this conversation, that seeing yourself, this is why representation matters, right? Yes. So it's not just about, I want to get here, I want to make money, I want to do this, but it's about your impact on your community, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's about the women who are next to me, behind me, and those in front of me. I often talk to my mentees and tell them, "You're the next now. I want you to know that you're the next now."
Yeah. I love that too. I want to share with everybody before we go into the next word that when I wrote my first book, Ro and I were still working together at WLTX, and I was brainstorming, and I just could not think of a name for this book. And it was kind of a workbook that actually really goes along with my memoir, right? So I wrote the workbook first. Yes. And then I started working on the memoir, and I couldn't think of a name for it. And I gave it to Ro. And I think I also had one of our other coworkers look at it and kind of help me edit it. And I said, "Ro, I need a name."
I remember that.
Do you remember what name you gave me? It's awesome.
I don't remember the name, but I remember like giving you a name, and Mary was like, "What? Exactly. Just like that?" I was like, "Yeah, just like that."
I mean, she literally went just like that. It's called How to Rip the Band-Aid Off Even When It Hurts.
Yes. Yes, I remember. Yep.
Yeah. And that's so I have Ro to thank for that. All right. Next word in our game.
Okay.
Silence.
Not golden.
Ooh.
I tell people all the time that you no longer have the right to remain silent, and your silence is not golden. I know they told you that in the movie theater, silence is golden, but it's not. You deserve to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Love it. Because I think so many, especially as women and Southern women, and as children, we're often taught to be silent, be seen and not heard, that kind of thing.
Correct.
And so I think when we get to a certain age, we realize that our voice does matter, right?
It does.
But we spend so many years, 20, 30 years before we get to that age, from in adulthood, right? That we tamper ourselves down.
We shrink.
Right? Yeah, we shrink. Yeah.
We shrink. Yeah. We alter ourselves. We tailor ourselves. And when you start to chip away, you start to see less and less and less of who you really are.
Right.
And I love the fact that this is who I am. that today the hair could be platinum blonde,
Yeah.
next week it could be purple. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's like this is just who I am. Big frames, big glasses, colorful nails. This is who I am, and I don't make any kind of apologies for it. I remember working with LinkedIn and creating my first course with them,
Yeah.
and I was on the call, and I think my hair was purple, dark purple then, and I was going to be a blonde because I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm going to California. I'm going to California as a blonde.
Right.
So I remember sitting there just thinking, this is me. And they said to me, they said, oh, you don't have to change your hair color for us. We know that's a part of who you are, and we want you to come as all of you. And I
Great.
felt like that's so powerful. And I
Yeah.
make a point that people know if they book me for to come speak in whatever capacity, whether it's traditional speaking or whether I'm speaking and it's a ministry assignment. This is who I am. Don't expect me to tailor this or shrink this down. I'm coming as all of me. And that's really been empowering.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? The fact that you're doing that gives the others of us permission to do that as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which harkens back obviously to the visibility is power thing.
That's it. That is it.
All right. Next word is the digital streets.
Where I hang out.
On- I was going to say on the street corner, and then I thought, well, that has a very bad connotation, so I won't say that one.
I love it. I love it. Where I hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Explain.
when we talk about digital streets, I'm talking about like social media platforms.
Yeah.
And I said it a couple of times on a video, and people were like, I love that. So then it became a part of my introduction or what I tell people, and they're like, I love the digital streets. I love
Yeah.
the digital streets. I love it. So we just say it.
Yeah. It's see, this is another example of how you just think of something and it becomes this turn of a phrase and this really cool thing.
Yes, I'm like digital streets.
Yeah. All right. So this one is, it harkens back to her storytelling, right?
Mhm.
So, and I talk to my students about this all the time. Explain to everyone
Mhm.
what you mean when you say hook or lead.
Oh my gosh. I was just talking about this last night. So the lead, you don't want to ever bury the lead,
No.
Mary. Don't bury the lead. So the lead is really the thing that draws people, what gets them to really connect to what you're saying. It's putting the most important information right up front, right at the beginning of your message.
Yeah.
That is it. That is the hook. That's the lead. Why should I care? Should be right at the beginning. I shouldn't
Right.
have to wait for that information.
Right. I know a lot of TikTokers who need to hear that piece of advice right there.
Yes, for God's sake. And then, the other thing I know we have a lot of hooks like, you won't believe what happened or how I was able to do X to do this. Some of those things are also clickbaity. So we got to watch
Right.
the hook exactly as well. Like just tell people what they need to know.
Yeah.
Three
Yeah.
things you need to do right now if you want to be seen, heard, and paid.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about being clickbaity for a second, because I
Yes.
think I talk about your credibility as a
Mhm.
content creator, as a
Yes.
journalist, or whatever realm that you fall in for, when I'm talking to my students.
Yeah.
And so many headlines and so many of those kind of hooks and kind of that people are using are clickbaity. And
Mhm.
so I want you to talk a little bit about why we should steer clear of that type of stuff.
We need to stay clear to that because communication matters.
Yeah.
And if people can't trust the words that you're saying, they start to feel like they can't trust anything else.
Right.
It's almost like when you have the new reporter, the new anchor, and they have the anchor voice. But then when you
Yes.
talk to them outside of work, they don't sound like that.
Right.
That impacts your credibility.
For sure.
So use the voice that was given to you, not the voice you're pretending to be or
Yes.
trying to be.
Yeah.
It speaks to credibility and reputation.
I always tell my students to drop the anchor voice, drop the anchor Mary, right? And
Yes.
just be Mary.
Just be Mary.
Yeah.
How would you
Just be
tell
me.
your friends this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Consumer is the next word.
Consumer,
Yeah.
spender. Yep. I'll just say that.
And we're talking about not just the spender as far as money goes, right?
Yes. Spending time.
Yes.
Consumers scroll. Doom
Yes.
scroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll just leave it like that because I
Yeah.
think I know what the next word's going to be.
Producer.
Yep, the next word, producer.
You know where I got these
Paid,
from.
yes, paid. So consumers scroll, producers produce
Yeah.
the content that consumers spend their time on.
Right.
So you have to think like a producer when it
Yeah.
comes to how you show up online.
Yeah. And I want to just reiterate to everybody that the idea of think like a producer, we have a MAX class that we're proposing in that vein. It's called Think Like a Producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Bring
I
me in as a
want,
guest.
and you can apply that
Yeah,
way of thinking to everything in life.
everything. I've used it in motherhood. Think like a
Share.
producer. What's the backup plan in case this kid has a blowout?
Yeah.
Blowout diaper. What are you going to do? And I learned that from what's going to happen if you lose your lead because the live
Right.
shot's messing up. What's your backup plan? So I
Yeah.
learned that I've taken that same skill set of thinking like a producer into motherhood.
Yeah.
Always having a plan B, always making sure I have extra clothes in the back of the car. Just
Right.
all of these things that I've learned from being a producer. I've used it across the board in different segments of my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Authenticity.
Real. Being the real you and not the you think people want or the you're trying to imitate because you see online. This
Yeah.
is what causes people to gravitate. Being you, and you is enough. I never think about how many people would have been impacted by me showing up or impacted by my style.
Yeah.
I get so many compliments about my style, and I would have never been able to try it. I'm like, why not? I just try stuff and I just
Yeah.
see how it works. My kids are usually always like, that's pretty on brand for you, mom. I was like, really? Not too much? And that, my husband and I have an inside joke. I say, okay, what do you think about this? Is this too much? And he always laughs and he says, you're too much. I said, great answer.
Yeah.
Going with all of it,
Yeah.
So it's just, I've learned how to be okay with my too much.
Yeah. Oh, I love
That
that.
for so many years,
Yeah.
I've often heard, you're too much. You're too much of this. You're too much of that. You're too much of this. Well, you're not enough.
Yeah.
And when I'm saying you're not enough, meaning you're being less than, but penalizing me because I'm being too much.
Right.
I just learned to be comfortable with my too much.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And I think I want to make it clear that in saying you're not enough is in an encouraging way to show people that you need to step into.
Yeah, you're
power.
acting less than.
Yeah, acting less than. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we've hit on a lot of topics, but
Yes.
What else do you want our listeners to know about your area of expertise that you think might help them?
Communication, by definition, is intimacy with words.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people you've been intimate with online and haven't really seen success with it. There's a lot of things that you've seen online that people communicate that you're just like, that's not the truth. That's not what that really is.
Yeah.
What I want to challenge you is really to say, you know what? I'm going to stop sitting on the sidelines and I'm going to start communicating with my people so I can create a marriage with my community. I have some of the best community members.
Yeah.
I mean, when these folks found out I was having a baby at 40, these folks rallied behind me like Baby Show is their kid. I mean, seriously.
It's true.
She received $100 one time for going to the potty. Someone was, oh, she's pottying. I'm like, well, I potty all the time. Why don't you send me money? It's just like people have rallied because why? They feel a part of my community.
Right.
They feel a part of what I'm doing. And these are the people that recommend me for opportunities or invite me to on their podcast or support our business and what we're doing. And so that came from the fact that I was willing to communicate truth and marry my community.
Yeah.
I was willing to do that.
Yeah.
And the result of that has just been profound.
That's a great innovative way to put that. To be married to the community.
I'm married to the community. I'm here. Yeah. I want to see you win. I'm cheering you on. I'm proud of you. I was in Walmart, ran into someone, and I was just like, hey, what are you doing? Told me something. I said, hey, can I give you a quick piece of advice about that? Oh, please. And she's like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought about that. Why? I'm here to support.
Anytime that you would stop me ever in any space in the digital streets, in the real streets, and you said, let me give you a piece of advice, you know what I would do?
Yes.
I would stop and I would turn around and give you my 100% full attention.
Yes. Yes, you did. Every
Yeah.
single time. I was like, Mary Sturgill, yes, Ro. I said, come here, come to my mobile office. Let me talk to you for a second.
And I would still do it to this day.
Yes, I appreciate that, Mary. Thank you. Means a lot.
I want to share with you some words that I came up with that describe you, and not to put you on the spot or
Wow. Don't
make
you
you
make me
blush or
cry,
anything,
Mary Sturgill.
but or make you cry, right? Obviously, international speaker. We've talked about that. Encourager, truth teller, um, mother to a future track star,
Yes.
and two other great kids, Baby Row
Yes.
or Baby Show. Um, and I think everything that you're doing out here, and I think one of the reasons that you're so successful, and I don't want this to get lost on people, is that you are one of the kindest people that I know.
I endeavor to live a life like that.
Yeah.
I don't always get it right, Mary Sturgill, but I endeavor to do that because I just want to meet, I want to leave the spaces and places that oh my gosh, I'm tearing up. I want to leave the spaces and places that I encounter better than how I found them.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to leave it better. I want to leave a mark there, not just so I can say I was there, but so that it can just be better for the next people who come behind us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can be better for the next people who you encounter.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm just really passionate about.
Yeah. And it shows. It shows.
Thank
Everybody
you.
who is in your presence or who knows you even a little bit feels that from you. Right. Which is one of the
Thank you.
reasons I'm like, I've got to get you on the show. And we had to cancel before. I was sick one day and I felt so bad. And I was like, "Yeah, we've got to we've got to
Yes,
reschedule."
I'm glad
Right.
that we were able to do so.
Yeah, me
Seriously,
too.
seriously
Because you're
glad.
just a gem that I just wanted to make sure that all of our listeners got connected with, learned who you were.
Thank you.
And because you're doing some majorly positive things out here in the digital streets and beyond.
Thank you, Mary Sturgill. And I'm proud of you. I'm
Thank
proud
you.
how you are using your voice to amplify the good and how you're still tapping into the skill sets and things that you have learned in television news. And you're doing it your own way by
Right.
betting on yourself. And that
Yeah.
is pretty powerful, my friend.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, I don't want this to end, but I know we could sit here and chat all day.
Yes.
How can people get in touch with you if something you've said has resonated with them?
Yes. So two places I'm hanging out these days. The Ro Show Live, that's TheRoSholive on Instagram, and
Mhm.
then Roshanda Pratt on LinkedIn. I
Yeah.
would love to hear from you.
Yeah. And then real quick, what's the LinkedIn class that you taught that you've
Sure.
done?
So it's a course on LinkedIn's platform, LinkedIn Learning's platform, and it's called How to Be Seen and Heard as a Video Creator.
Yeah, love it.
Yes.
So easy peasy, go educate yourself,
Yes. Please.
listeners.
Yeah.
Ro, thank you so much. And thank you for coming to work today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here at work today. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mary. I enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. That does it for this episode of the Class E podcast. Remember, this is the podcast that is brought to you through the partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. And there are a couple ways that you can support us. Subscribe
Mhm.
and follow us and comment and interact with us because we love all of that stuff. So if you love these conversations that we're having on the Classy podcast, then join the community and interact with us. We'd love to hear from you, of course. Ro, once again, thank you so much.